Okay, for people joining the live stream, we haven't had one of these for a little while. We've been busy finishing version 12, and I'm happy to say that version 12 should be ready to go next week, and at least my role in it is pretty much done. Well, no, it isn't. I've still got to write all kinds of blogs and things. Huh. Okay, in any case, we are talking about language completeness and consistency, and we have an agenda of items here. So let's get going. Packed array, queue, and the function repository. We shouldn't put things which are documented into the function repository.
Right.
That does sound crazy. When you put it that way, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? So if I look at packed array queue,
hit direct hits.
Yeah, that's arguably crazy. So I think we need to discuss what we want to do with this stuff in the future. I mean, whether we want to have, I would say that the developer and experimental contexts have not been a wild success. I mean, what's in the developer context right now, if I ask for that?
There are many more things than are actually documented, partly because people just assume that they could put whatever they want in it, and partly because it's so damn hard to write developer context documentation that most people don't bother, even if they...
What's involved in doing it? Does DocuTools support it or not?
Well, you need to reset your documentation directory from system to the packages /
So as we get this more lightweight Packlet documentation stuff, that should get fixed. But I agree that that's completely crazy.
Yes.
So, okay. So the question is, what are we doing with all these things? Because some of them, I mean, how many of them are even documented here? Do we know?
There's a guide page which lists most of the documented ones, hopefully all of them.
Okay.
Right, at the bottom, there's a developer utilities package.
That is a pathetic list relative to the complete list here.
Yes.
Okay, let's have a quick look. So has the function repository team looked at these? Does anybody know? Sushma, do you know?
So function repository team did add the documented ones to the function repository, not the undocumented ones.
Okay, which is possibly the opposite of what should have happened.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay, look, this is pretty pathetic what we have here. I mean, the good news is, okay, let's look at the picture here. I mean, these are somewhat unwashed things. I mean, like in code base 64, does that even make any sense anymore?
It's probably the thing that base encode calls, or it's probably some variant thereof.
Right. Now, find divisions. I thought we actually had that. Don't we have a find divisions in? Maybe we don't. That would be a nice thing to have in somewhere available. That's the thing that finds nice tick marks and things.
Find divisions is in system.
So why is it in here as well?
For backward compatibility.
Oh, I see.
Right. So, for example, if we wanted to say that, to packed array and from packed array and packed array queue, I mean, I don't think we should actually do anything with packed array form. I think we should actually dedocument and hide that thing. But
great. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Then what?
But if you want to declare that we should make to packed array and from packed array and packed array queue, system functions, I would have no objection to that. Of course, we would keep the developer context
sure
guide there for backward compatibility.
Let's talk about, I think this is the wrong moment to promote these to system because, we've got the compiler and its whole type system coming up. And I think we might have a more general version of this, right? That does things, there may be other sort of custom types like this.
Right. And we're working, right. And I mean, this is an ongoing discussion with numeric array. So, that's not an unreasonable argument. But I think, like I said, turning the documented ones, which, direct hit into function repository is just creating confusion. I mean, the first question, right, the reason this even became an issue on my radar is people started asking, well, what's the difference between the two-packed array in developer and the two-packed array in the function repository?
Okay, let's review what we have here, okay? Okay, somebody needs to go through this list and figure out what the story is. Like partition map, by the way, could we please try to arrange that this thing is not off, that the baseline isn't...
Yeah,
I mean, I've reported this like 8 times. Okay. By the way, I think we should say in these obsolescence messages, we should say 10.2 paren 2014 or whenever it was.
Okay.
Okay, so question is what the story with these developer backtick things actually is.
So our strategy was we'll go through the documented symbols first for all the standard packages because it is easy for us to evaluate them. So that is what we did. And once we finish them, then we'll go to the ones which are undocumented.
Okay.
So yeah, we have not...
Okay, fine. All right. So I think that the conclusion here is temporarily call off the attempt to make two-packed array from packed array be function repository things. Let's reassess this.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Just those 2 symbols.
Well, is there anything else that was being promoted, was being put from developer into function repository?
There are around 10.
What are they?
Polylog simplify, cell information, zeta simplify, packed array q, polygamma simplify, Bessel simplify, machine integer q, gamma simplify.
I have to say, I don't object to any of those. I think the from packed array, to packed array are a lot more special because I think they're more used.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you agree?
Right. I mean, I think the packed array ones in particular should not be there because they're widely known and used. The simplifiers, I think nobody. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure anybody still uses them because we've made reduce and simplify so much better. I can ask Adam if there's any use for these. I mean, I forgot that there were so many simplify ones. And like trig to radicals, right? That functionality is now in, I forget which one it is, right? But it's
if it's
the trig.
Listen, if it's really been superseded, then we shouldn't even put it in the function repository.
Okay,
that should be determined. Okay.
Okay.
Fine. All right. Let me just see, just for interest, experimental, what the status of that is. Okay, there's got to be tons of stuff here that doesn't make any sense because cylindric algebraic decomposition, we have that. Gray code, well, we certainly have that. I didn't even know there was an experimental gray code thing.
I think that was the final fate of the thing we almost created, but then there were too many issues, so we...
Okay, but now there's a function repository version.
Yeah, I will check if that's the experimental, if it's taken from the experimental context, but I think that is what it is.
Okay. So there are things here. I don't know what any of these are. Jarrow distance. I thought we had a thing like that. Okay, well, so have you? You should go through the. Okay, so listen. One possibility. What is angle range? Anybody have any idea what that is?
That sounds like a Brett function.
Nope. And it's not one of the 6 experimental context functions that has documentation.
Yeah. And the only one which we have in a function repository apart from gray code is value function.
From those. Okay.
From those, yeah.
So I really think, like tabulate is a good function. Could whoever's typing in our ear not do that, please? Okay, well, so could you get the function repository team to look at these, please?
Yep.
Dive Fantine instance seems promising as well. Look, when we think there's something here that is just really dead, like it's completely superseded, I don't know what we should do. We could put a documentation stub that just says it's superseded. Do we think we can remove anything in experimental?
I think
yeah, there's some good stuff here. There's definitely some stuff that can be used in function repository. All right. Well, let's do that first, and then we'll go from there.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Mail item issues. Oh boy, is this horrifying?
Yes, basically. All right. So so I delved into mail item and friends and okay, so the first issue is attachments. So you can go to, well, I guess we now have this replicated in several places, but I think it's on mail item, and we have like 4 or 5 different, none of which is actually the one I would actually want, which is one issue at the present time.
Okay, hold on. Mail item. Okay, so what are you complaining about? You're complaining about attachments and attachment data. Is that correct?
No, I'm complaining about attachments in particular, and attachment data, and attachment names, and attachment summaries, and attachment associations.
Do we have Fahim here to defend this?
I'm here, but this is Sean's. This is Sean's territory.
Do we have Sean here to defend this?
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Right. So first item, attachment says list of processed attachments as expressions. But if you actually look at this, then you get a list of rules, which seems, if I'm importing these things as expressions, what do I care what their file name was?
Okay, Sean, can you talk about these things? But first of all, are there examples somewhere?
There are examples on if you look at EML format page, then you will see examples there.
So the documentation started in mail receiver function, and we copied the documentation over from.
You broke up. Hello, anybody there?
Oxia.
Yep.
Can you
Sean, you're I don't know where you are, but you broke up there. We couldn't hear you. Can you? I can't hear. If you're saying something, we can't hear it. Where are you?
Minnesota.
He's in Minnesota. Okay. Well, they have internet in Minnesota. Last I knew.
All right. So I can tell you. So my understanding of the story is that it was first created for mail receiver function, and then it was copied into EML and MBox. And since the mail folder, or whatever the name is, mail
item is a wrapper around EML.
Right. So. Okay. Right, so if you open import elements and then attachments elements,
Okay, that doesn't seem stupid.
Okay, I agree.
That's
this one, I argue, is stupid.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
Right, then there's attachment names, which is
that doesn't seem stupid. It's a little bit. I mean, I don't know completely why you would have it, but it could be useful.
Right.
I am so sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can. Okay, my internet completely died. That is uncommon.
Okay. All right, attachment data we don't. Wow.
Yeah, I think I'm right. I put in right. So I put it.
That's not a very useful example, if I might say so.
Yeah, if you look
short or something.
Right. If you look in my in the agenda there, I have just the keys, or maybe yeah. So you can.
This seems a little crazy. I admit, this does seem a little crazy. All right, so let's go. My God. Okay. Okay. So let's look back here. Attachment names, I don't have a problem with.
Right.
It doesn't seem. Attachment summaries, I also don't have a problem with. Well, but what's a little weird here is that
attachment data and attachment associations overlap except for content.
Right, but arguably, to what extent should we think about this? Should this have been name, arrow, and then the summary? You see what I'm saying? And to what extent is it right to have it be this triple like that? I just don't know how attachments. What can attachments be? Are they always named or not?
They can be inline. Are they always named? Chenyu, do you know this one? I don't think so.
I don't think so. If it's an inline attachment, we don't have names.
Can you not type in our ear, whoever's doing that, please? Okay, so what would happen if there was an inline attachment and you asked for attachment names?
Missing.
Okay. So what would it do here if there was an unnamed attachment?
Missing for the left-hand side.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I unmuted just so you could hear him.
Well, I have to admit it gets pretty crazy, especially because the missing on the right-hand side also has like the name embedded of it. So if that's also missing, it just becomes a huge mess.
All right. What do we know in terms of backward compatibility? If we changed, I think what we should do is deprecate attachments, call that attachment list, and have it be simply a list of the right-hand sides.
Yep.
Makes sense.
For backward compatibility, we should continue to have attachments here, but that you could extract, but we will not. Okay. So then attachment names is okay. Attachment summaries seems okay. Now let's talk about the other ones here. What the heck is this? So attachment data is raw data, which seems worth having. I mean, it's slightly duplicative, but I think that's worth having. Now, the final one that you have, attachment, what were you calling the final one?
Associations.
Is attachment data plus one key, which is
content.
Content. Yep.
That doesn't seem worth having. I recommend we dedocument that. Because I think that's duplicative. I mean, in other words, you either... Okay,
why
so
would
the one thing... Right, so the one thing we don't have here is... What if you have attachments where... Hold on. The case that I'm thinking about is the case where you want to do something based on the name of the attachment, but you actually want the expression version of the attachment. Do you get what I'm saying? How would you get that? Rather than having to do a re-import on the raw content. See what I'm saying?
Sorry, I'm not sure I follow.
Okay, so let's say we've got attachments labeled ABC, right? And what I want to do is I want to operate on the expressions that are attachments ABC, knowing the names ABC. How do I do that with what we're proposing to do here?
That's a good question.
Well, so one thing you could do is index into attachment names.
Right. I mean, if you did a map thread on attachment names and attachment list,
can't you just do association map if it's an association?
Yes.
But it isn't an association. Where's the association? We're talking of getting rid of attachment associations. Okay, why do we want raw content? Is it a fallback in case we can't import it?
Right, then you can import the byte string with import string however you want.
Or if you want, I mean, so I personally don't think I would ever want it, but I can conceive of if you want to write directly, access the data and do whatever, manipulate it yourself. Because I know you want to save it and sign it separately or something. But
wait a second. What is the story with digital signatures and things like that? Do we know how that relates to all of this?
That's not really done.
What do you mean by done?
So, as in, you sort of have to if you want to verify a signature, you need to sort of manually download, import things and verify the signature. We don't have on either, read mail item or whatever the name of the function is, or on send mail.
Okay, I understand. But we've got now the digital signature functionality. So the question is, how will that weave into this? Okay, so that's a question.
CML once you already have the data, or is that just for SendMail IMAP stuff?
What's that? Say that again.
Is that going to be relevant for email and Mbox where you already have the data, or is that just on SendMail and IMAP and stuff?
I don't know.
No, it's certainly, I mean, it is in principle readable because if it's signed with a key known by something, then your mail client can tell you whether the thing is correctly signed or not. I mean, MUT is whenever somebody sends me an email that has a signature attached, MUT will you tell me?
Aren't these just a part of the
signature because I don't know this key?
Aren't these just a part of the received headers? Is that what you're talking about?
Guys, why don't you go figure this out? We're not going to figure it out right now.
Okay,
so the question really is, this thing with attachments got nutty because of the fact that it has repeated keys. It would have been fine if it had been an association, but it can't be because of the repeated keys associated with missings. Right? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, not just missings. You can send the same attachment name twice in an email.
Right. How many other import formats do we have where we have the same issue? Having repeat things that should be associations, but they have repeated keys. Can we? That's a question for Shadi and other people. Can we investigate that?
Yep.
Okay. Could you please not type in our ear? Could you just set it up so that isn't how it works? Okay. Well, I think attachment list is a reasonable thing to do that we would add to these functions. And again, Carl on our live stream is asking, why don't we generate unique names for nameless or duplicated attachments? Because that's even going to be even more confusing, I think. If the duplicated name, I don't even know what it would mean. When we have a duplicated name there. Yeah.
Right, we wouldn't be importing the right data.
Okay, so back to the question of whether one cares about associating the name of the attachment. See, I could imagine something. Okay, I don't know how people use mail attachments enough. I mean, could you imagine a thing where it's always the attachment called, fish that is the relevant thing? How do people manage mail attachments? How do they deal with the? Why don't is Chris Smith on this call by any chance?
No, he's not.
Let's ask him. I need to find somebody who knows about how mail, what the typical conventions are for mail attachments, which I do not know. But provisionally, I think we should have attachment lists. We should deprecate attachments. I think we should deprecate attachment associations and just have attachment data. Okay, that's my suggestion, but I would like to check that. I would like you guys to go figure out about digital signature things, and I'd like to check with somebody who is more familiar with what actually goes through mail servers. Sound reasonable?
Yes.
Okay, let's go on to the next item.
That was only one of several issues.
Oh, gosh. Okay, what's the next issue?
All right, so close this thread, because this thread was about the element. So open it. That subsection. Right. So we did the first two. So my third.
I have one that's slightly more related. With the documentation here with like these attachments elements. One thing that has always confused me is the description doesn't necessarily tell you exactly which keys are in, for example, attachment data. We have the same problem with something like message summary, message elements, full message elements. We give a vague description on the right-hand side on the table above and import elements, but without actually calling keys, you don't know exactly what this is. And I find that confusing.
We should say it.
How do we document that?
I think it should be a note right here.
Okay, I'll put something together.
We should say inline something like attachment data consists of attachment data contains associations with keys, blah, 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 blah. The names of the keys. Okay.
Right. And so we duplicate one, but not both of those keys in the table 3 notes down with the attachment related elements. So I think we should either repeat all of them or none of them.
Look, why don't we put the notes at the very end then? Let's put the notes at the end here.
Okay, but
I think he's saying that association shows up in 2 of these tables. If you scroll up, it's in the very first one,
attachments,
basic element, and then it's also listed under attachment-related elements.
Yeah, I know. So okay, so fine. So I'm saying put the note at the very end of the whole thing down here.
But my question is we have an inconsistent here that we have attachments and attachments data in the basic elements.
I'm aware. I don't think there's a problem in repeating that because I think
that's Stephen, let me finish my sentence, please.
Okay, go ahead.
So we have an inconsistency in that we repeat attachments in that more specialized table, but we don't repeat attachments data. So is the error that we repeat attachments, or is it the error that attachments data should be in that bottom table?
The error is that attachment data should be in the bottom table.
Okay.
Okay. And I would argue that in this basic elements thing, we should actually leave attachment data out as it happens. And we should just have attachment list.
That makes
I'll
sense.
Make those changes.
Okay. All right, next item down here. Why does mail search return a data set and not a bunch of... Okay, so that relates to the same question as why text search, what text search returns, what web search returns, and so on. They've all got to be consistent.
I see.
And they're not right now. Okay. So that was a separate thing. I think, Sushma, we were talking about that.
Yeah. So all of those returns data set now, except for text search, because text search is a different thing because we don't have a lazy data set concept right now. But there are web image search and other things written data set.
I think that's the answer.
Okay, well, and so I mean, maybe this is just an implementation detail that needs to be solved. But for example, if you do mail search to search for something, and then you try to extract the attachment, then you get missing of not available or
right. So here's the problem with that. We don't actually import attachments when we are doing a mail search because you can get the whole mailbox in memory. So to be somewhat quick and be reasonable, we don't actually import attachments when you do a mail search. If you want, you potentially just have to get the mail item by doing the indexing of mail folder, like mail folder 1 or 2. Whatever.
No, I mean, surely whatever we return in the result of mail search should have a handle from which you can get the mail item with all of its attachments. Why doesn't it?
Okay, so you want me to extract, so data set has mail items in it, which is just a preview. It's not actually full item.
No, I understand that. Okay. But were you to want to get the attachment for that mail item, how would you do it?
You can do that, yes. You just, excuse me, you just get the whole mail item. You just get the position and get the mail item.
No.
So Stephen, if I may, the current workflow is you take the item you want, you extract the key, I believe it's key or maybe position.
Yes.
You extract the position, which is currently returned as a string, so you have to call toExpression on it to turn it into an integer.
Right, I'll fix that. I will fix that, yes.
Okay, and then do mail folder of that key to get the full item.
Why? I don't understand. If you just extract the mail item blob, okay, why isn't mail item a summary box? Well, it probably should be. And if it became a summary box, hidden inside that summary box could be the handle information that would allow you to index into mail item and say mail item of attachment list, for example, and then just retrieve the attachment list magically, so to speak, because the attachment list would not be present in that raw mail item summary box.
It can be done, yes.
Right. Yeah, I think what we need is mail item property extraction to be smarter. So if you do mail item of
see, it gets slightly more complicated if you are thinking about mail item, a random key from the documentation of EML, right? Then you
should be able to do it. You just go back and retrieve the mail item. I mean, what's wrong with that?
In any case, what will happen is you download the whole mail item and then do an input on it. You can't really do directly from the server one of these keys. So it's fine. It's totally fine. We can do that.
Okay. All right. Fine.
Well, I mean, we can discuss offline if needed, but I think basically all we need is mail item. If it sees, I don't have an attachment, and you're requesting,
go get it.
Yes. Yeah.
Go get it.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. We got a couple of comments from the live stream that are interesting. Genesis asks, why not have one key with a list of values? Because that way, if we do that, it's unpredictable what you'd end up with, and you'd end up having to encrust even singletons in lists. Ethan asks, primary reason why I can't use attachments is that images get resized arbitrarily into low-res versions. Fahim, Sean, or anybody else, can you comment on that?
Is that in the front end? Because that's just the default behavior. If so, that's, I suspect, the default behavior of the front end that you can get around by just right-clicking and selecting original size.
That's what I would expect. We just do a default import, so it should preserve the quality. We have
I
good
see. So,
images.
Yes, we don't do anything more than that. We get all the original data.
okay, fair enough. So what you're saying is just that the image, whatever it is looking smaller, but it is in fact all the pixels are there. Is that what you're saying? So I mean, if I, for example, did something like, if I just take a random screen capture here, bloomp, like that, and put it in here, great. We still have that bug. I still had to Sushma, I think this is for you to report again. I thought John had fixed that bug. The bug that required this to get refocused in order to be a target for the screen capture thing. Anyway, so this might look like it's low res, but it's actually not low res, right?
Right, and if you put braces around it or something, right? If you select automatic size,
where is actual size? Okay, there we go. No, it's crisp. Okay, just a second.
Right, and my point is with automatic size, how big it looks might depend on like whether it's inside a list or on its own and things like that.
Yes, right. Okay. Ethan is also saying we need the ability to search the contents of attachments. Fahim, your comments.
You'll have to do text search on it. You can't do it live. Mail search is an IMAP search. It's not a search on random stuff. You can't do that.
Okay, so let's walk through that for a second. Yes. So, for example, my mail searcher, right, from whenever it is, 20-something years ago, that is being updated now to use text search, right? It is, I don't even know how it works. I mean, it has, I don't know what the attachments look like there. Does anybody know? What is stored in my mail archive? Is it EML files or what?
It should be base64, all the attachments.
Yes, you have email files, and those contain usually base64.
Okay, and text search is doing what with those EML files? Are we, as the index is created in text search, are we cracking the EML? We're cracking open the base64 and the EML file to feed things into the search index. Is that correct?
Right. Well, one thing that we're working on right now is basically being able to find an adequate plain text representation, like by format, and specify that to EML mbox to solve this problem.
So wait a minute. Walk me through that again. So you're saying that one of the things that we might want in the future is textual, is something that's called attachment text or something.
Well, something like that, yes, would be very useful, but also a more general form of this where you can specify specific import elements by type, and that could be either by MIME type or format specification or whatever.
Okay, but bottom line, if I've got a picture of a squid or something, and it's just an image, in the current state of the world, I mean, we could run image identify and discover that it's a picture of a squid.
That would be one approach that's probably going to be pretty slow.
Sure. But better than
you can also look at metadata.
Because what's in your EML file is a base64 encoding of it. So unless we,
I understand, but we know we're going to have to crack open the base64 encoding to do text search anyway.
Right. So I mean, that's just a judgment call. We can pick what elements we want, meaning we could pick some kind of metadata to search through.
Well, we could do the EXIFs of the images, but the EXIFs, knowing that it was taken on a Nikon camera or something, is not the most exciting thing usually.
No, we haven't really decided what the best form for images would be in a text search. Maybe the file name is the most useful thing at that point.
I think the file name is the only useful thing other than an actual image identifier, which I don't think is crazy to run. We have that technology. It's not that slow. It takes 50 milliseconds or something to run one of those. Doesn't seem crazy to me, and it's better.
That sounds like post-processing to me.
Well, it's part of, look, we know that in text search, the first stage of text search is what do we actually put in the index, right? And so that we expect a bunch of options in what we put in the index. This is something, again, has to be coordinated with Nicholas Lickmar, who is, by the way, now moving to the machine learning group. So that's where that further development is going to be merged with the NLP stuff there.
I just want to make sure that if the user, Ethan, is asking that if mail search should do the search, or should it be imported first and then you do the search? Because the workflow would be simpler if mail search runs all that stuff.
Yes, but as you point out, that's basically impossible to run it on the IMAP server. Mail search is running using the IMAP protocol, and it just can't do it.
Yes.
I mean, the alternative. What is the alternative? I mean, for somebody okay, so in my own case, for example, the way it's done is that I have a plain file system of all of my mail, right? Does anybody here know?
I mean, that's how my system is also. I mean, I can drill down the file system to an attached notebook.
Yes. Yeah, well, I think that's how mine works. So the question really is, okay, so when people search, I don't know, when in the cloud email providers, surely they let you search in attachments, don't they?
Well, that actually depends on client. I'm pretty sure Gmail will actually go into some text attachments, but that's the only one that I saw. Like Thunderbird, Apple Mail, etc. It's just file names.
That's so primitive.
Yeah.
That's so primitive.
Well, I mean, so is there a way for mail search to search, the local copy of your mail?
That's another problem with mail search. Now, people confuse it with the normal mail client, but it's not. You see, we never save a EML file on disk.
And, well, no. I mean, right. I have a whole bunch of inboxes.
Right.
Locally to my file system.
Yeah. So
no, it can't do
that. That isn't using webmail basically.
Right.
Right. No, mail search, as I've pointed out.
So okay. So hold on. So one possibility would be that one could. So for example, I have no idea. Does the Mac Spotlight search, does it run on the local copy of the Mbox?
Yes, I'm sure it does. I use it all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So in principle, our text search could be running on the local copy of the Mbox file, including attachments, as opposed to running on the live IMAP server. I think that should be investigated. I don't see why we wouldn't want to have that be an option. I mean, what's the advantage of running on the remote IMAP server?
That's because it's not local. That's the advantage.
I don't think Spotlight is looking through like an Mbox file. I think the way that certain clients store all this stuff on your computer is different.
I see.
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I do know that in a lot of these cases, there's somewhere sitting on my file system the actual attachment.
Yeah, right. Okay, listen. This is a Chris Smith question. Why don't we ask these questions and try and unscramble this? But it does seem to me like it's not completely crazy to imagine something, at least in the future, where we could do, where mail search, there could be a version of mail search that's effectively doing a local search using text search on your local copy of your Mbox.
Right, and we're definitely going to, what we're doing right now is mostly taking Mboxes and then creating an index that you can use text search on. So
no, I understand. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and so
I think that's what you're getting at, though.
Right. I mean, so there are their storage formats are independent of the IMAP protocol, right? So the how the mail server chooses to cache thing locally, it can do it as a maildir, as an Mbox, as EML. It can even use MH format if it's really, really bold and retro. And
okay.
I think one of the things about Zimbra is that, they're using their own custom backend, which is why they're, for both better and for worse, they have their own custom backend, but they expose things using the IMAP protocol, so any client can read that and then cache it locally however it wants.
Right. I mean, the fact is, Carl on our live stream is saying he doesn't think he's ever needed attachment search. Well, the thing is, I, for example, and many of us probably have many, many notebooks as attachments. They better get searched. And I'm pretty sure at least mine do. I certainly, they must do. They must do, because I've had like reports of various kinds that I would never have found unless, yeah, okay. So actually, this is the thing. Sushma, could you check with Roger about how that's working for my mail?
Okay.
Right. So if you're using Apple Mail, then I'm almost certain, right? Apple Mail.
I'm not using it for my search system. I have my own custom search system built 20 years ago and rebuilt recently using text search.
I see.
Okay. All right. Let's try and do a few more items from this agenda, please. I think there's some more investigation that has to be done on this whole, searching attachments, the relationship to text search, and so on.
So this was a pretty. I think we just wanted to actually make sure we actually knew what the design was before we implemented something.
Count distinct occurrences of expressions matching a pattern at all levels. Just like count. Okay, I made a comment that I said I was wrong. That sounds pretty normal. Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay. Okay. What is the pattern argument? Well, so count is just counting the number of things of that pattern, right?
Right.
Okay. Count distinct. Why on earth is it not referred to here? Is there a count distinct? And
there is a count distinct.
And why on earth isn't it referred to in count?
Assumably because they didn't bother to add it.
Well, let's add it.
Yep.
Hold on. Let's put it. I would argue that it should be. This is a crazy ordering here. I mean, both sequence count and string count seem highly relevant to count. Much more relevant than some of these just seem bonkers.
Right. Well, okay, wait. So, I mean, this is... it's not completely crazy because count is something that works with the pattern matcher. And so certainly before any of these, and it's a much older function, right?
Yeah, right.
So before those, so I think people either just added them at the end or they decided to keep the pattern matching related ones together. That they may have been wrong, but
I think they were wrong. I think that those I'm going to fix it here. I'm just waiting for the update to finish here so that I can make sure I'm updating the correct version. How can there still be ref pages that are getting put into the... I know, I'm curious. There's a thing called Ripley K. What on earth is that? How could I have not heard of this, whatever it is?
It's a statistical distribution, and it's probably still futurized.
Ah, okay.
It's for spatial. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but I know.
Oh, it's probably spatial statistics, and these are probably futurized pages, and that's why I'm not seeing them. But they're getting put in the build. Okay, no problem. I mean, they're getting put in the system, but not in the build. All right, it's all good. Okay, had me worried there. Okay, so now let's look at count. Okay, I claim this is really pretty crazy, this list. I agree that cases is useful there. Well, that family is okay, but leaf count. I mean, free queue and member queue makes sense to me. This is a bit embarrassing. Okay, so I claim count distinct probably actually is the very first thing. Is there a count by function?
I think so, or maybe not.
Maybe one doesn't need it. No, one doesn't need it. Count distinct by one needs. I claim sequence count is the next one.
It's counts by.
Okay, I think leaf count is just barely relevant. This is a mess. Why is match queue relevant? Member queue.
Because the pattern has to match. Right?
Yeah, I understand, but count is, it's only faintly relevant. Okay, so counts by. No, counts by is a different thing. That's connected to counts.
Right.
Which I claim should also be much more prominent. Select bin counts. That's all right. That's okay. That's all right. What's there? Okay. Seems to me we better check some other functions around this. Some of these may be really, really, really antediluvian, so to speak. Actually, that looks much more reasonable. All right. I think we just had an anomaly here. Okay, in any case, all right, so count distinct. So we've got count, which has a pattern and a level spec. And now we've got count distinct. Why the heck doesn't it have a pattern and level spec? Oh, I see. I see. Count distinct is simply counting. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm a little confused here. What I did with count wasn't quite right. Unless we add. I'm so confused here. Okay, what I did there wasn't right because the count distinct is not the most relevant thing. Okay, I think leaf count is really irrelevant. Why is leaf count even vaguely relevant? Anybody see any reason why that's relevant?
No, I don't think so.
I think count distinct actually is more related to counts. Because count distinct defaultly is the number of things. So,
I mean, it's length of delete duplicates, right?
Yes. Okay, but so what you're saying is we might want to prune the count distinct by a pattern or by a level spec, right?
Right. So the original suggestion was, yes, we might want to limit to a pattern and we might want a level spec. But if it's count distinct, then maybe same test is. So the question is, right, do we need a pattern or do we need a same test? Or do we need both? Is really the question.
I think the same test would be nice. But a pattern is saying, what do you even care about at all?
Right.
You know. I mean, so in other words, what I might want is something like, you know, count distinct, you know, in this list, everything of the form f of blank.
Right.
I mean, you know, arguably, I could just say cases list f of blank and then do count distinct on that.
Right. Well, I mean, count distinct is clearly a tally function. And so for all we know, the implementation is length of delete duplicates.
I love the way that it's called. You know that tally did tally invent the function tally? Does anybody remember?
No, he replaced the function tally because tally didn't like tally.
Right.
Right. That's why counts exists, right? But either way.
Yeah, I mean, counts versus tally is a Carl is commenting. I know that's not a favorite thing. Why doesn't counts have a same test? Well, partly because counts has to have a left-hand side to its associations, and how would you pick the representative? Right? I mean, it would have to have an arbitrary choice. It would say it's the first one that is in the same test equivalence class.
Exactly, but you're right that makes it harder to use.
Right.
Which is why by works.
Right. Okay. So here, count distinct. I agree that a same test seems to make decent sense of what counts as distinct, so to speak. But now the question is it worth having a pattern?
I don't like the idea of mixing those two things. I think these are two different families. The same test family is like tally, gather, split, and they don't use patterns.
No, I understand, but this is using a pattern for a different purpose. This is a pattern for pruning purposes. Oh, I see what you're saying. Tally could perfectly well tally things according to, pruned by a pattern, but it doesn't.
Right. I think it's the pattern who should already prune things.
Fine. So with the cases, basically.
Right.
And arguably, there should be an example showing that in the count distinct documentation. So we should put that in there. But okay. But so now, what about a level spec?
That seems fine.
Yeah, but the problem is with argument ordering, that's hard to have a level spec without having, then we're having a level spec without having a pattern, and that's kind of confusing.
Well, if we do have a pattern, it would be like level. It's like level and then the leader duplicates of level.
What do you mean? Sorry. I see. Level the function.
Yes.
Right. I see. Well, your point is that count distinct of level could just give the thing on that level.
Right. All the elements on that level, and then get the distinct ones.
Okay. So the only part that is not. So, I mean, that's arguing for a same test because that's not replicable by something else. It's arguing that we simply document using cases and level, which is what they're for, so to speak, to get to that point. That sounds sensible to me, that we have a same test and we just document the cases and level thing. Objections?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I was just going to point out that with if we use tally as our model, then that it has rather than same test. Well, it has an optional second argument, and it doesn't have a list. It doesn't have a level spec or anything.
Right, and it has a second argument that is its same test, basically.
Right.
Right, which is what delete duplicates does also. Which is how count distinct is implemented.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me. All right, so then that would be a second argument for count distinct.
Mm-hmm.
Fine, it's in that family. Let's do it. And then we should document the way of using level and cases here. Fair?
Okay, makes sense.
Okay. We're running out of time here.
Yeah, this one I don't think is quite so simple. So
I just want to look ahead. Just let me just remember to push this back. This update I just did back. Oh, what is this? What is this? Partition should work on associations.
Right, which is not this is a suggestion, and I don't know that I agree. And even if I do agree, it's not obvious like what it should return, because right, partition doesn't take arbitrary heads, and
well, what you're trying to do here is to take the association, treat it as a list of elements in sequence, and partition those, right?
Sure.
Why you want to do this, I haven't a clue. But I mean, well, for example, if you're trying to paginate something or something like that, you might want to do that. It's the analog of take, right? If I just do take on that association, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, that does the right thing. So the issue is,
I think the problem is that take preserves the head, but partition needs to introduce a new head, which is usually the same one it had, and it cannot be with association.
yeah, as Sandra is pointing out on the live stream, partition is perfectly happy to take an arbitrary head.
Right. Yes. I
boy, what it did there is weird that it puts that F as the outer head. That's really weird. Well, maybe it is weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yes, I misspoke earlier when I said it doesn't take. Right, and the problem is with an association, you won't be able to
use the same head. You'd have to use a list as the outer head.
Right. Yeah. I think there's also a question of what you would do for padding, which is another case where you'd have to sort of introduce keys.
It could also be a list of socks.
Well, that's right. But the issue that's being pointed out is when there's padding, how do I introduce padding here?
Up to 4. Or sorry, that's the non-padded case.
Yeah, that's non-padded, right? Well, that's pretty weird. What just happened there is pretty weird. I bet we didn't think of that case.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just a bug.
But it sort of demonstrates the point.
Yeah, what you do with the additional elements when they're going to be padding elements, which those were not supposed to be, but they're there. Yeah, I mean, you need a default key. It's like having a sparse association, which we don't have that notion.
Right. Well, except you can't repeat keys. So.
Right. You're right. This is a more complicated topic. Another time. That would be useful. That would be useful. We should talk about it a little bit more, but that would be useful.
Yeah, I don't entirely understand what Constantine is asking for, and he's on PTO, which is why I moved it to the bottom. So
okay, fine.
We should just wait.
Well, I mean, I think what he's asking for is
there's already an import-export file format queue. It's just whether or not we want to promote it to system.
Right. I mean, what this is doing is, it seems quite sensible to me. It's simply a test that you would put, if not, your file, GIF, then error out. But I think the more interesting case, and we should note this for when we talk about this, is this an image file? Right? That's the more interesting type of thing to ask.
Is it a what file?
An image file.
Ah.
Were we to read this in, would it turn into an image, or will it turn into a potato chip or something?
Yeah, that makes sense. We need some.
Because I don't think it matters whether it's a JPEG or a GIF or whatever else. That's not the important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd need some notion of like format groups.
Yeah, right.
Right. That would also be useful. I still think it would be fine to bump this into system for an actual test for a specific format so that you can test it before calling import.
Fine, but let's discuss this along with the image groups thing at another time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think we're wrapping up here. Those who are following the live stream, we will be doing another live stream at the top of the hour about incremental language development. And some of the same people will be there.
Isn't it at 4?
I said at the top of the hour, which is otherwise known as...
I mean, it's 3 p.m. Central Time.
Oh, okay. That's why I was confused. So
that's why I said top of the hour. Because, okay, see you guys soon.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.